Welcome, everyone. If you can hear us, please, Jill, if you could just nod if you can hear us right now. Thank you. So I want to thank each of you for being part of today's local and state legislative luncheon. We know this is not typical of what we're, standard used to, but we're hoping 2022 we are back to normal, and we're excited to host in person again for next year. But it has been 2 years since we've hosted, so we're glad to be able to have you all on and have everyone here present and also virtually as well. We thank you for being part of this today. We know it takes time out of your day, so we appreciate that. Today's event was made possible by all of you, so thank you so much for being interested in what's happening and having your questions available, so we really appreciate that. Our top level capital sponsor is Bruner, Cooper, and Zook. So thank you for being supportive of a lot of the efforts that the Chamber does and obviously of our community as well. BNSF Railway and Comcast is an advocacy sponsor, and actually we are at the BNSF Hump Tower conference room right now. So we were able to bring some people in person, and we're excited about that, to have some folks in person and virtual as well. Those of you who are enjoying lunch or soon to be enjoying lunch, it will be on its way. If you haven't received that and you did order lunch, we were really happy to work with Innkeepers Coffee and Lenny's Subs here in town to coordinate lunch today. And we actually have some ambassador volunteers who picked them up, and they're running deliveries around town today. So yes, we're really grateful for our volunteers who helped make this happen. Yeah, so it'll be coming soon, everyone. So thank you for waiting for that. But making lunch remote work has been interesting, but we've figured out how to do that pretty well. So huge thanks to our ambassador volunteers though. So thank you for that. And if you're not familiar with who they are, I'm sure you'll be seeing them more into the new year coming up too. A few notes to keep in mind: you were muted at entry, so we do ask you to remain muted. That's just so we can, continue the progress of the event today in a timely manner. And if you are a panelist, you can unmute yourself though. During this session, we'll move into a time where you may raise your hand. The button is located down towards the bottom of your screen. It is the reactions tab. So once you click that, then you'll be able to click on raise your hand. And we'll have a time where you can ask questions once we get past the moderated session. Probably about 12:30 or so, we'll have about a 10 to 15 minute time for that as well. Let me introduce you to our panel guests. Online, we have Senator Jill Tracy. Thank you for joining us today. We have State Representative Noreen Hammond across from me.
Good to be with you.
We have State Representative Dan Swanson.
Good afternoon, everyone.
We have the Knox County Board Chair, Jared Hawkinson.
Hello.
And we also have available virtually Mayor of Galesburg, Peter Schwartzman. Thank you so much for being here today. I would like to ask all of our guests attending for maybe 5-minute opening statements or introductions from each of you, and we will start with Senator Jill Tracy, please.
Well, welcome to this legislative luncheon, and great thanks to the Galesburg Area Chamber and Pam Gaither for all of her hard work and her dual role of Zooming and in-person legislative updates. I know it's a challenge, and certainly this pandemic has challenged us in many ways, but also taught us many different ways of how we can accomplish things. And so I welcome this opportunity to visit with you. I'm the state senator for the 47th Senate District. That encompasses in Knox County, pretty much if you were in Galesburg, to draw a line along Seminary Street, everything south of there. It also encompasses Adams, Brown, Cass, Schuyler, Mason, part of Fulton, Henderson, and Warren County, and Hancock County, and McDonough County. So I may have missed some, but it's basically 11 counties in the 47th Senate District. I've been serving in that position for 5 years. I serve as the minority whip in the state Senate. And prior to that, I served in the Illinois House from 2006 to 2014. My husband and I primarily resided in Mount Sterling, and we raised 4 children there. I am an attorney. I was in private practice. I also worked for the Illinois Attorney General as one of the regional directors, and Knox County was part of that region. And so I was there at the Knox County Courthouse quite a bit in that time. And in the House and the Senate, I have focused on rural education, making sure that our children receive the best public education and then are able to get a vocation or go to higher education in an affordable manner. And that's been a struggle. And I've saw it as an extreme need, having raised my children in a small rural school in Brown County, Illinois. But we've made some strides in that in my years in the legislature. And it took a long time and had been worked on a long time. But also economic development. I see that we've lost many manufacturing jobs and job opportunities in the state of Illinois to our neighboring states. And I believe in less regulation of our businesses that helps them operate better. But I also think our capital improvements are necessary because we are in a rural location, great for the railroads and the rivers and the transit systems that we have within Illinois, but we have to keep them upgraded all the time so that they work best for our families and our distribution links. And also, what I'll be working on in the upcoming legislative session is during the pandemic, we've seen kind of a go it alone approach by Governor Pritzker. It's been 18 months that he's issued executive orders back to back after they expire every 30 days. And I don't think whenever those emergency powers were put into place that it was anticipated that we could go on to a disaster or a pandemic of 18 months in length or more. And so what we've asked is that we go back to the checks and balance, or at least I have asked, and my Senate Republican caucus and the House Republican caucus have done that, is to request that the governor involve the legislature more in his decisions. And towards that end, I'm part of a bill in the Senate that hasn't gone anywhere yet, but what we're trying to do is after an emergency order is issued, after 30 days, the governor would have to go back to the legislature bodies to ask permission and get their input and guidance as if he were going to issue a further executive order for the same disaster or pandemic, whatever it is. So with that, I look forward to your questions. We learn from you in the business community. I'm grateful for the chamber updates that you get and the legislative lobbyists that work for the chamber to give us your input. I have newsletters. Pam could get you my email if you want to be part of that. I know you get chamber updates, but you may want to hear what else is going on. We're in session in the next months from January through April. So, and I might add one more thing. We went through a census, and with that redistricting, you've probably got a feel that redistricting is in the courts right now. The legislative maps that were drawn had some issues and not in what the Republicans felt like was not proper adherence to the voting rights, and that some minorities were greatly disenfranchised when they should be better represented. So even though that is the case, the new legislative map that's been drawn that mostly because of our population center will pretty much stay the same. I would reside in the new 50th Senate District. And so instead of going all the way north to Galesburg and Knox County, the 50th District goes all the way south to Madison County near Alton. So I will still be your state senator for the next coming year, but I wanted to alert you of that I very much enjoyed representing this area for the past 10 years in my House duties and then in my Senate duties. But I may be going south to Madison County most likely. And so with that, I just wanted to make you aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill, for that update introduction. Let's move on to State Representative Noreen Hammond.
Thank you, Pam. Excuse me. It's great to be here with you, and thank you to the Chamber for putting this together, and to your sponsors for allowing it to happen, and certainly to Burlington Northern for hosting us today, and great to be here with their government affairs folks, particularly Peter Scosi.
Thank you.
So
Thank you for coming down from Chicago.
Does a great job for representing Burlington Northern interests in the General Assembly. I currently represent the 93rd district in the Illinois House, which includes all or part of 8 counties, and included in that, as Senator Tracy said, is part of Knox County, the southern part of Galesburg. I share that with my colleague to my right, who has the northern part of Galesburg, and that is Dan Swanson. And so it includes all or part of 8 counties in the west central part of the state. I don't currently go all the way over to the west, to the river, but with the legislative redistricting, the way the maps have been drawn, it will take me from 8 counties to 12 counties, and basically from river to river. It'll start in Rock Island at Andalusia, and no, I don't ski, and take in parts of Rock Island, Mercer, Henderson, Hancock, part of Adams, part of Warren, part of McDonough County, not Macomb proper, part of Schuyler, not as far as Rushville, most of Fulton County, a little bit of Tazewell County, Knox, as I mentioned, and Mason County. So basically from river to river. And while I will miss Galesburg proper, I'm very happy that if successful, I will still be in part of Knox County. So Abington is 8 miles, I think, from this location, so won't be too far at all. I currently serve on a number of committees. I am the minority spokesperson for Consumer Protection Committee. I serve on higher education and public utility discussions this past legislative session with that they will also continue as we begin this. Because of the redistricting and the redrawing of the maps, and we will see what the final decision is from the courts, I assume very soon, before the first of the year. I don't look for the districts that have been drawn in the west central part of the state to change. So we can pretty much assume, because of the redistricting, we've also moved the primaries off until June. And that kind of throws a little bit of a wrinkle into our normal session schedule, if there's anything ever normal about our session schedule. So this year, we have the same number of days, but we are scheduled to start January the 4th, and our session will end in April, after the first week of April. That's so that folks can be out pounding the pavement before the June primary. Also interesting in that petitions will run from January to mid-March, so that'll be something a little different. There'll be people knocking on your doors when there's snow on the ground, so please be kind to them. But that's kind of where our session is going to start, and I don't anticipate, we did so much controversial legislation this past session, I don't anticipate there will be all that much more, probably a lot of cleanup more than anything else in the upcoming session, but that just remains to be seen. But great to be with you today.
Thank you, Noreen. Let's move on to State Representative Dan Swanson. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam, and thank you to all the sponsors, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. This is always a pleasurable event as we get into the Christmas season, and unfortunately can't get together as a group, but this is certainly a nice way of closing out the year by doing this. And Peter, it's always a pleasure to see you and the colleagues here at the table with Noreen and the chairman of the Knox County Board, Jared. It's great to see you here, and just looking forward to a nice discussion here. just to kind of carry on, before I move on, though, I just want to thank the Galesburg Chamber, who truly has been and continues to be that face to the field for our businesses. And face to the field is a term we use in the military to illustrate how you are out in front and you are the people that are recognized in our communities. And that's so true now more than ever as we have all these new grand openings and stuff that if I can't attend, my legislative aide attends, Julie attends, or gosh, even my wife Tammy, she'll gobble these up and I'll go. So really a fun event within the community. It's great to see all the newness coming about in the community. But on the political side, I currently serve in the 74th district, which extends from the Keithsburg all the way over to Princeton, where the flags of freedom are, and then from southern Knox County, Rafferty up to Rock Falls. I have all of Mercer County, most of Henry, quite a bit of Knox, and as Representative Hammond said, her and I share Galesburg, Bureau County, and Lee County. And under the new maps, quite a bit of change, where I was 120 miles, 140 miles east to west, 120 miles north-south. I go 100 miles primarily north to south and about 14 miles wide in some places. The 71st district, which I reside in, includes Rock Island County, the cities of Moline and East Moline and Coal Valley and those communities, up into Henry County, a slice of Henry County, Mercer County, quite a bit of Knox County and Galesburg and Knoxville, and my district in Knoxville ends at Don Moffitt's house. So I'm glad to have that continued presence of Don within the district, and then goes over to Warren County, picks up Monmouth, and then down to Macomb, pick up McDonough County. I'm looking forward to the new relationships. I'm a graduate of WIU. I've talked with Dr. Hong on several visits, looking forward to meeting with him, Monmouth and Knox College, and getting a chance to see all the new faces. I tell people I'm leaving the 74th with 209,000 friends, and with the redistricting, our districts go to 208,000, so I'm looking forward to the new 208,000 new friends. So in the House, I currently serve on several committees. I serve on the Veterans Committee, which I'm the minority spokesperson for. We and I have been very vocal and concerned with the loss of so many veterans due to COVID at our veterans homes. And Shirley has gotten the attention of the governor with some of my comments on radio and elsewhere. I serve on the Police and Fire Commission. I serve on the Elementary Secondary Education Policy and Curriculum, a great committee that we certainly have our challenges with that committee with some of the legislation and mandates that passed through this past year. But we continue to hold up our family values and our traditions of the western part of Illinois here through that. A very interesting committee is the Mental Health Committee. I was put on last year for the first time. I serve as minority spokesperson on Appropriation Public Safety and proud to serve on the Agriculture and Conservation Committee. As we go into we're continuing in the 102nd General Assembly, our committee assignments will be the same, but as we move into the 103rd General Assembly after the election, those tend to get shuffled around at that time. But I'm certainly proud and honored to serve the people of the 74th District, and I look forward to carrying on those same hardworking values and traditions moving into the 71st. So thank you, Pam, and thank you once again for allowing us all to participate in this great event today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan. Jared Hawkinson, the Knox County Board Chair, please.
Well, hello, Pam, and
Hi.
everybody that's online. Thanks for joining us. This is obviously a change of pace. I know 2 years ago we were all in person at Swanson Country Club, which was a large gathering, and hopefully we'll get back to a full in person. But thanks, Pam and the Chamber and Peter for coming down from Chicago. I can't leave Mark out for being the moderator today, but a little bit about myself is I was elected to the Knox County Board in 2016. And most recently, last December, as board chairman. So I've been obviously doing that for the last year. Got one more year on the docket, and we'll see where that takes us after that. But at first, I can't leave out my family. I've been married for 20 years this year. I've got 3 children. One just turned 16 and starting to drive. So little bit of less sleep there, and then I've got an 11-year-old and a 1-year-old, so quite the span to keep me busy and my wife busy. But some other activities that I do outside of the county board, which for my territory as an elected official for Knox County, basically starts at Don Moffitt's house and covers the entire north half of the county outside of the city of Galesburg. So all the small communities in the north half of the county from Don Moffitt's house north is my district. I also serve as the vice chairman for the Knox County Housing Authority, which serves about 1,800 families and provides proper shelter to them. I'm also a police officer for the city of Knoxville, as well as a yard master right here at BNSF. So I spend quite a bit of time, in this building that we're in. So thanks again, Peter, for allowing us to be here in a nice facility. I'm also serving on the ETSB board, which is the 911 board for folks that don't understand that, as well as the Knox County Area Partnership Board, which does great things for the community. Ken Springer over there at that organization is really stepping up the game and trying to bring, manufacturing and any business that we can get into, not just Galesburg, but Knox County as a whole. Knox County, as we all know already, has tremendous talent, great folks that provide some great workforce support and some businesses. I know my representatives, Hammond and Swanson, talked about their redistricting. The good thing is for the county redistricting is we made 0 changes, even though we had a small reduction. I think we had about 2,500 people leave the county in the last 10 years, but it wasn't enough to warrant splitting townships up or the city of Galesburg for the county board. We did make some minor changes to township voting districts, but that didn't change any locations of any voting districts. That just consolidated the township voting districts and as a reduction for requirements to have judges, the election judges on site. So a little bit of cost savings there. As the board chair and a representative for my district, as well as now the entire county, some of the top priorities that I have for the county, just a couple of them, is proper use of the ARPA funding that was afforded to us by the federal government and your tax dollars. The way I look at it is, I've had a lot of folks ask, why would you want to waste money or spend money that's, gonna have to be paid back by our kids? My answer to that is, we have this once in a lifetime opportunity to utilize the funding for the community and for good things, because if we don't spend it, somebody else is going to spend it. So let's invest it in our communities, let's spend it on our communities, and try to do the right thing and make our community a better environment for everybody. So we've got a lot of work ahead. I didn't know spending $9.8 million was going to be that difficult, but when you're trying to get a lot of information and spend it wisely, because like I said, it's a one-time shot right now, we want to make sure we're doing the right thing. The other top priority for me with the county is modernizing the county government. As with any government entity or even a business, we try to stay ahead and stay with the times and the flow and the reliance on technology. As for the county, we're a little behind, but we're making good strides already this year, and into next year we're going to be revamping the county's website, which will be a lot easier for members at large of the general public to do their business with the government, receive their wedding licenses that they still have to go in and do in person for the initial piece, but you can get your death certificates and birth certificates all online, pay everything online, so you shouldn't have to make a trip to the county courthouse or the assessor's office. And the other big piece that has been on the burner for a couple of years for a lot of folks is a new facility for non-judicial government. As anybody knows that visits our Knox County Courthouse, there is no room at the Knox County Courthouse for expansion or for even what we have to do there now. So my goal is to be in a new facility for non-judicial, hopefully by the end of 2022. So we're looking for buildings that can be rehabbed, and there's a lot of nice facilities that we've got around the county and in the city that could possibly house us. So I will leave it at that, and thanks for having me.
Great, thank you, Jared. And Mayor Peter Schwartzman of the City of Galesburg.
Hello, folks. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. It's great to see everyone. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. Most of you I've met in person, some of you have not, but I think this is a great opportunity. This is my first such meeting, and just hearing your comments so far, I can tell there's a lot we can build on. I want to again thank the sponsors and also everyone else who's able to join us today. This is an important meeting, and subsequent meetings like this, I think, can help us, the 5 elected members here, work together toward common goals. I think a lot of times different levels of government don't correspond or connect as much as they should, and I think there's a lot of potential. A little bit about myself. Some of you don't know me, so I'm still virtually a full-time professor at Knox College. I've been there environmental studies professor since 1998. I received my PhD in atmospheric environmental sciences in 1997 at the University of Virginia. I also have a master's in science studies and a BS in physics. And so that's my educational background. But of course, I moved to Galesburg as a professor, started to raise my family there, got involved in the community, founded a couple nonprofit organizations, one of which is still a very active, Knox Prairie Community Kitchen. Some people may know of it. I'm still serve on the board of that great group. And through that effort and community, raising family, getting to know people, getting to know the nonprofit sector, I was moved to run for city council, which I did in 2011. I served on the city council for 10 years as Ward 5 alderman, and then most recently was elected mayor in April. I also have 2 daughters who have raised in Galesburg. One is now off at college, having graduated from GHS last year, and my other daughter is a current student at GHS. In terms of my priorities looking forward, I mean, the city council spent a good amount of time last weekend, not the most recent weekend, the weekend before, in fact, 16 hours with city managers and department directors on a strategic plan. And that was the first time we had done that in nearly about 10 years. And that plan now is still in kind of a draft stage, but it's going to be finalized in any moment. And that has the goal of that plan was to come up with strategic priorities for the next 5 years. And I can give you just a sneak peek at some of the highlights. So the 5 strategic priorities, priority areas were public safety, housing, community and youth engagement, economic growth and strength, and customer-focused governance. And under each of these 5 categories, we have strategic goals. In fact, we have 23 total. And each of these goals has measurable outcomes and target dates for achievement. And so when that document is released to the public, which will probably be within the next few weeks, it really is kind of a guiding document for the community over the next 5 years. I'm very thankful. I said this publicly at most recent council meeting. I'm very thankful that the councilors were able to take time away from their lives to do this and really give it the attention it needed. And then all the folks in the city managers and directors who participated in the strategic plan. Because in many ways, the next few months after the plan is released is an implementation plan, which will require the wisdom and know-how of those managers and directors with oversight from the council. I think when this document's released, it really is important to acknowledge it. And we're going to be using it as a basis for our success. And there are many ways to do some of the things that we set out to do. And so in some ways, the devil's in the details. And we need the community to participate in that process as well. And so I'm really looking forward to working with not only individual members of our community, but also other stakeholders, the businesses, the other nonprofit organizations. And I think I'll close with the thought that one of the most important things that came out of the strategic planning process is the absolute need to partner and strengthen relationships with other government and non-governmental agencies, such as the school district, the mental health organizations, the local colleges, and in fact, the county board as well. And so I'm really excited that once this document is finalized, we'll certainly be forwarding it to everyone and promoting it very broadly. We have a new city website. I hope you've all checked out. It's been out for a few months, and it's got a lot of great elements to it. It's really refined. It's much easier to find things and inform people of what's going on in our wonderful city. So thank you for that. I look forward to further conversations.
Thank you, Peter. And I do want to say a couple mentions to those in the room that we've made mention to or not. We have Peter Scosi. He is the Executive Director of State Government Affairs for BNSF-ROA. And thank you so much for coming down from Chicago. It's quite lovely to meet you and have you here. And then we have Carrie Hartline. She is for I don't know how many days. The countdown is on.
Yeah, about a month.
Yes, so she is the Galesburg Area Chamber of Commerce chairwoman. So thank you for being here as well. Yay.
And bringing lunch.
Just delivering.
Well, it is important, so thank you for that. I am pleased to introduce our moderator for today's event, Mark Rudolph. Many of you know Mark is soon retiring as CEO at KCCDD. When is that date coming up?
End of the year.
Yes, so, but
This year.
he is the chair of the Chamber's Government Affairs and Transportation Committee for a few more days. So we couldn't let him off the hook without one last farewell duty. So Mark, I am going to turn this over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Pam. Well, we have a series of questions. Thanks to everybody's wonderful introductions. I've been going down my list, marking off questions that you've already responded to, which didn't leave me with a lot, but I think there's some stuff we can get to that'll get to the heart of the matter. I'll ask each of you a question, and then there'll be, at the end, if we have time, there'll be 2 questions that anybody in the room can respond to, including the room on the computer. So, Senator Tracy, may we start with you?
Sure.
I think everybody has heard the word mental health in the COVID environment for a long time. And there's a lot of concern about mental health and the legal system. This year, Senate Bill 1649 was introduced that amends the Community Mental Health Act and requires that 20% of the monies levied under that act be immediately deposited into the county sheriff's fund to be used for mental health services within the county jail. The bill didn't get traction this year, but did add Republican sign-ons that now total 6. Can you speak to the mental health system and the legal system and how we're going to manage that in Illinois?
Certainly. I will say that Illinois really has done a dismal job of funding mental health services. And the need is great, especially as we've seen in the pandemic. So much of our violence on the streets, I believe, has, and crime in general, has to do with mental health and not having the services to treat those that need those services. One of the bills that the Senate Republicans introduced to address public safety was giving the sheriff's departments more funds to, actually law enforcement in general, dedicating more funds to have resources for mental health. What we have learned from many of our sheriffs is that county jails are often used as holding cells for people who really wouldn't be there if they had the proper mental health treatment. And so we want to recognize that and help our law enforcement deal with it, but most of all, help those that find themselves afflicted with a mental health disease and are unable to get the proper treatment. And so I will continue to work on that. I think it's very important, as I say, for public safety, but most of all for families and those that are dealing with mental health issues. Jails and interaction with law enforcement is the last thing we want to do. So I will certainly be a strong advocate for mental health funding that goes to the most meaningful ways to deliver services that to those that need it the most. Finally, I did a telehealth medicine bill years ago. It came out of a task force survey of looking at how rural areas did not have availability for mental health services. There's very few psychiatrists in our areas. There's very few mental health facilities available in our rural areas. And telehealth, as we've seen now with the pandemic, has proved very useful to use the best resources to get people into services and be able to visit with a counselor or a psychiatrist or whoever it might be that they need to talk to avail themselves of telehealth. Now, broadband is part of that challenge and the equipment needed for that, but we'll continue to make inroads in that. And I think that is a value. The telehealth services is a valuable aspect of those mental health programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tracy. I appreciate your input on that, and there may be some follow-up questions when our people call in that are out in the rooms. We'll go down the line here, and I think we'll start with another probably pretty tough question for Noreen, and Dan can answer as well too. Ethics reform legislation was passed and certified by the governor. Did it go far enough? And if not, what was not addressed?
I will say, first off, Mark, no, it didn't go far enough at all. For many years, I served on the Legislative Ethics Commission as one of the two House Republicans. And when I began was the time when we didn't have a legislative inspector general. When we would go to meetings, whether they were over the phone or in person, there's nothing coming before the commission. No need to worry about having a legislative inspector general. There's nothing coming. Fast forward, when we finally did get a legislative inspector general, we found that there were hundreds of cases.
Wow.
And as members of the commission, we were not aware of that. That's just one little example. So when this ethics bill was brought forward, one of the points that was glaringly missing was allowing the legislative inspector general autonomy from the commission. So saying to her or him, you don't need to come to us to get approval to investigate a case. If you feel the need, then you should do it. If you need subpoena powers, you should have them. Our colleagues did not believe that would be in their best interest, and so things like that were not included in the bill that was passed. So do I think it could go further? Absolutely, it could. Going back to decades ago when the legislative inspector general, Homer, was there. When he left a list of things that he believed could be done to make the system more transparent, to give the legislative inspector general more authority, and also when the previous inspector general was there, she also left a list. I think it's incumbent upon us, and certainly all Illinois citizens, to say, let's get that list out in the open. Let's see what's there, and why aren't you doing it? Why isn't it included?
Thank you. Dan, if you'd like, you could speak to that same question, or if you'd like, I could ask you a question about redistricting.
I echo what Noreen said on the first question, so.
I'll let you off on that one. Redistricting has drawn significant attention, including legal actions, and is labeled gerrymandering. Both parties get creative with districts, but what would your solution be?
Well, that's a great question, and I think it's a question that many ask every day of why do we go through this every 10 years? Well, the history is every 10 years we go through a redistricting process in conjunction with the census. So that's why we do this madness. How do we get around it? We do like other states do. We don't have politicians draw the maps. We have a computer-based program do it, or we have someone who is far removed from the legislative process to draw these maps. And it's better focused on the population. It's better focused on the different ethnic groups that we have. The process we went through was several that was started last spring. There were several different committee hearings. Unfortunately, the members of those committee hearings, their voices were not heard. And that's why these maps have been challenged in the courts, not only by the House Republicans and the House and the Senate Republicans, but the Mexican American Legal Defense have challenged these maps. The NAACP have challenged these maps. There's been others who have tried to get on to challenge these maps. Unfortunately, they came to the courts too late. Just as was indicated earlier, there's been a 3-judge panel who've been looking at these maps beginning clear back in May. Of course, the first districted maps were thrown out, not by these judges, but by the rulings of the Supreme Court, saying there could not be more than a 10% deviation in population of these. And once the census dropped on August 12th, that deviation was found to be greater than 10%. Some was as much as 29%. So these maps were the maps were drawn off of American Community Survey data, which probably nobody listening to this or watching or participating in our teleconference today received one of those surveys, because less than 1% of the population in Illinois receives it. And that survey is based upon how many libraries do you have, what's your police protection. Community surveys, not population surveys. So that's the information used on the initial maps. Fast forward August 12th, those maps were determined because of previous Supreme Court rulings of deviation. We were sent back or called back to Springfield August 31st. I think we voted at midnight or something like that on the 4th or 5th deviation on these maps, V4 or V5, and that's where we're at today on these maps. The courts met on this past Friday. It's a 3-judge panel. The judges met on Friday, heard some comments and heard some arguments. I anticipate, and we never know how a court's going to rule, but we anticipate here in the next week or so that we should hear some findings on that. Those courts are going to rule. Possibly the next step could be that these maps could go to Supreme Court. We don't know, but that could be a next step. But redistricting takes place every 10 years. Unfortunately, several of my colleagues were put together in the same districts. Representative Freeze, Representative C.D. Davismeyer, Representative Bourne, Representative Murphy, and more of those go on just as a way to try and thin the crowd, I guess. But hopefully I answered your question.
You sure did, and kind of same as it ever was. It's a system that doesn't serve any of us very well.
Correct.
We'll go over to Jared now. And Jared, you really did a good job of answering most of my questions too. But we talked about the ARPA funds, which are, $9.8 million. And you talked about how you would like to see them invested back into Knox County. But how is the county board getting community input on those funds?
Right when we received notice that we were receiving that amount of money, I created a task force called the American Rescue Plan Act Task Force that's comprised of 15 people, 5 of the county board members, 1 for each district, plus myself as the co-chair with my board vice chair, David Amor, and along with members of the people of general people at large, private citizens, business owners, private groups, nonprofit groups, So there's 15 of us that are on this task force, and we meet, we're trying to meet 2-3 times a month because there's a lot of activity and a lot of motions going on right now that, you know, we're trying to get our base plan together. We're trying to get application process. We're trying to review the 171 pages of rules that the federal government issued to make sure that we stay within the guidelines. And so that's the group that handles that. The task force has no legal binding authority. All it is they get together and for use of the direct funding. There's 3 different funding types. There's direct funding, which is directly out of the $9.8 million. There's loss of revenue, which is calculated that goes back into the county coffers. And then there's interest funding that basically, you know, if you're receiving interest off the $9.8 million sitting in the bank, those are monies that are less restricted. So the ARPA funding direct funds are very restrictive. The loss of revenue is less restrictive, and then obviously the interest is very little restrictions on that. So we're trying to go through and see how we're going to spend some of those key pieces. So that's the group that we're using right now as well. You know, we're not limited to 15, but you know, we've got, you know, the mayors being involved, the city managers involved. We've invited all the smaller communities mayors because if we can pool our funding with their funding, along with a lot of the new funding from the state and the federal government, then that will reallocate the resources to spend more wisely.
Right here in our community.
Correct.
Peter, I think you're next queued up, and I guess I would ask this in 2 parts. One, same question as we asked Jared. I think the city, Galesburg, got over $2 million. How do you see that being spent? And then in a kind of a follow-up and maybe related question, that Galesburg's made real progress in revitalizing downtown. What is missing is housing down there. There's no people living there. What solutions can you offer to increase the number of people who live downtown?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, speaking to the ARPA question, the city is going to receive 2 checks, each at about $2 million. So we've received the first one, and the next one is due, I think, in about a year. We have been attending the county, the task force that Jared created. The money we have, you know, working with the city manager, which is our form of government, we're working through looking at, you know, ultimately a tool, an application tool that people can apply for. We've been getting unsolicited requests, of course, for that money. Once, you know, you have money that you haven't had before. And I know the county has received such similar requests. So we have to coordinate those applications. So we're sort of in the same boat as the county at this point. We have, you know, we've just recently passed our budget for 2022. In there, you know, there's no explicit use of ARPA funds, except maybe in 1 or 2 cases where we felt priority was needed, particularly in homelessness. We put money in the budget to create what's called a warming shelter, an enhanced warming shelter for this coming winter. We thought the timing of that was necessary, and we had indications from many different sectors of our community that there was increased numbers of homeless. So we're looking at that, and you know, prioritizing certain things. The strategic plan process, which again, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be a document circulating very shortly, is going to allow us, as we prepare future budgets, to look at, you know, where, you know, how do we use this money to meet the goals, and to, of course, address the challenges we still face under COVID. You know, I think as much as we want COVID to go away, all of us, you know, we're seeing increased evidence of increased cases in Illinois. The recent map I just looked at earlier today shows a lot of red spots where we see increased cases. We know the Omicron variant is blowing up in England right now. and is likely to become more present in the United States. Whether it's more lethal or not, the evidence is unclear, but it's clearly going to hamper or challenge our medical staff, which of course have been now on 1.5 year crisis mode. And I just want to reach out, I hope all of us are reaching out to them as much as we can to support them in every way possible, because it's a very trying situation for everyone. So we're still within that. And, we're as we plod through this, we're doing so very, very calculated in making sure that any initiative that we want to launch is vetted by the community. Part of what came out of the strategic planning was the need to create scientifically backed surveys in our community to see how they're doing in different specific ways. And so that's a tool we're going to have at our disposal in the coming year. Regarding downtown, obviously, I live about a mile from downtown. It's hard to live too far from downtown at Galesburg, obviously, but we have a wonderful downtown. In fact, the strategic planning facilitators spent several days in Galesburg, and they were just marveling at all the wonderful things we have to do in downtown. But as you mentioned, one of the new things we're seeing on a national basis is downtowns are becoming places where people live. And so your point about how much housing is there downtown for people who currently live in other places in Galesburg, but also in a way of increasing our population, which was a strategic goal of our upcoming plan. And it's really important to facilitate that and to make our downtown as livable as possible. How do we do that? Well, we have, working with our economic team, which is a partnership. Ken Springer, I see, is in the audience somewhere. Working with his team of people to see how that can be done, right, in terms of financial tools to incentivize the redevelopment of downtown in terms of its living capacity. There are a lot of buildings downtown that can be repurposed as apartments, particularly the second and third floors. We know that there's also some open lots in the downtown area. I had a local landlord who owns many different lots in the city and apartments and such and houses come up to me with an idea that why can't we build a new apartment building for those people who would be like e-commuters, right, who could work in Galesburg, live in Galesburg, but actually e-commute, that is, do work anywhere else in the world. We also, very thankfully, and I hope everyone has been attuned to this, we now have high-speed fiber going into Galesburg, and we hope that will be finalized within the next year or year and a half. And that's going to really open up opportunities for people to do that type of work. But yet they need places to live, and if enough spaces aren't available, well, then we have to incentivize the building of those through various governmental grants. I think also, the use of our also partnership with tourism and visitors, the visitors board, which I also serve on, Jared serves on, is an opportunity for us to do that type of work and really maximize our potential in making sure that people see Galesburg not only as a destination to enjoy many of our wonderful activities that we have throughout the year and our many wonderful venues like the Orpheum and our children's museum and such, but also a place not only to live in Galesburg, to also to raise a family. And so I think part of our strategic plan, although the how is still in the works, as I mentioned, but the actual goals indicate the bold desire to increase population in Galesburg over the next 5 years, which is a very ambitious goal considering the direction population has gone in the past 10 years. The county is down, the city is down, Illinois is down. And so we have to be very bold and we have to be very creative in this work. And I'd look to our elected representatives of the state who want to support this region. One of the ways to do that is to increase population. And one of the ways to do that, right, is to create housing for e-commuters. And so I look forward to any efforts and ideas they have as we pursue this together.
Thank you, Peter. That sounds like a challenge to everybody else. I have 2 questions now that we can put out to the entire group, and then we'll open it up for questions from the audience. And then everybody will have 2 minutes for a summation of anything you'd like to add to it. And, you know, it's between the devil and the deep blue sea. So I almost flipped a coin on this, but I'll start off with maybe an easy one. 15 states have term limits on legislators, with most capping continuous years at 8. What is your position on term limits? And Senator Tracy, if you'd like to start off on that.
Well, I sure. I know that the general public very much, I think, would like to see some form of term limits. I have observed, living this close to the Mississippi, one moment. Yeah, no. Wait, no. I'm sorry.
For me, that's usually my 9-year-old on Zoom poking me. So
Yeah. So anyway, I've living this close to Missouri. I've observed how they have done it in the past, and it's an 8-year term. If you're in the House or the Senate, you can do, say, perhaps 16 years. And what I have noticed is that they will tell you that sometimes staff is actually the ones doing the policy and the decision makings when you have term limits. Because I will say this is a very complicated process to learn. And I welcome those that want to get involved in the legislature. I encourage people to get involved in county government, city government, park districts, like learn about budgets and all that. But it's you will ask anybody that's just beginning to serve, the legislature it's complicated with the appropriation process and the budget and all the different agencies and how that works. So, but I'm at the point now, if the general public wants term limits and they think that would help, because Illinois had such a problem with corruption and the like, I'm all for it. I have worked with some longtime senators and House representatives that have been mentors that knew about when public utilities were unregulated, and they knew about when we did energy policy and different things. And so for me, it has been good to learn from those members that have been in a long time. And the general population is your term limits. They elect us. And if they think someone's not doing a good job, certainly that's the term limits that's there. But as I say, in listening to the general population, if they feel like that's the need we need to go to clean up Illinois, I'll be right there with them. It's never a career.
Thank you, Senator. Never a career, right? I guess I would ask Dan and Noreen the same question then, if you'd like to add anything onto that.
Sure, and I will just add to what Senator Tracy said, that yes, I think the general public is in charge of term limits. If it was something they wanted to put into statute, I certainly would not be opposed to that for any reason. But when you look at the makeup, particularly of the Illinois House, I have been there 10 years, and I'm about 18th in seniority. So I think that speaks volumes for term limits as a natural occurrence. And I serve on a couple of national committees. One is the Council of State Governments. I'm the co-chair for their Ag and Natural Resources Committee. And I also am first vice president for state and ag rural leaders. That's all 50 states and 8 Canadian provinces. And so we work with legislatures across not just the United States, but also Canada. And we have a number of members that are subject to term limits. And I can tell you, when they're gone, you just feel this vacuum void in the room because the knowledge is gone. And what we hear from many of those states is they consider repealing that because they're finding that the lobbyists, and I mean no disrespect to Peter, find that the lobbyists and the administration are running the show.
And I think several states have repealed those over the last.
They have.
Dan, you want to pile on there?
Sure. And this past year, we voted to limit and to term limit our leadership within the House.
Yep.
On the speaker and then also minority spokesperson or minority leader. And I believe the Senate did the same thing. And I think that's where the frustration a lot of people have seen through the years and years and years and decades of Madigan of being in there. And people said, well, we need a term limit. And that would have solved the problem. When I first came into the House, I was an SW. My license plate was 118. We're given our license plate based upon the seniority of the House. And although there were several of us brought in under that same year, about 12 of us, my license plate was 118. On my third license plate now, I'm down to 65. So there's been over that big of a turnover within the House itself. And actually, I believe the House, we're less than 6 years at the average right now of being in the House of Representatives. And, I was one of those who was out past petition several years ago that the Supreme Court's ruled unconstitutional or threw out because of invalid signatures on the petitions to bring about term limits through constitutional elections. And I certainly can support that again. It's just that from a different perspective now, at 5 years, I just now got a minority spokesperson position. Those used to not happen until you had 8 or 10 years, just because the turnover has gotten to be so much greater now that I'm at that point now where I can actually be a part of the leadership team as a minority spokesperson.
Natural selection.
Right, and it's basically, it takes a few years, a few days, a few weeks to find the bathroom. It's that big of a place. And now it's taken years and takes time just to become comfortable and understanding your roles and positions and working with lobbyists and working with how the system works. So, I guess.
Hey, thank you. We have just a couple of minutes left, and I'm going to throw this out there. This was the bomb you're all waiting for. Pension reform. Anybody want to talk about that?
I guess I'll jump in, Mark. We have tried and failed in the state of Illinois a number of times to reform the pension system and spent millions of dollars doing it. And I don't relish the thought of spending millions more dollars only to be defeated in the court. I think one of the ways that we can grapple with this is to make a concerted effort, an honest effort to pay down our pension backlog. Interestingly enough, we had a backlog of about $143 billion. Recently, we have paid $13 billion of that down, so now we have a backlog of $130 billion, which is just staggering, absolutely staggering. It's a result of years of either underfunding or skipping payments. And then the downturn in 2008 certainly added insult to injury to all of that. So making a concerted effort to put that as a priority, but that has not been the case in the state of Illinois, certainly in recent decades.
It's not going to go away by itself. Only 15% of private businesses have a defined pension plan now. So would anybody else like to speak to that topic? Senator Tracy, Dan, Jared?
I'll put my 2 cents in from the law enforcement side. In 2019, the governor signed the Downstate pension reform that affects the fire departments and police departments that used to pay into their separate pension fund. And he signed that bill without knowing what it was going to cost. And basically summation, you know, these two may have more details than I do, but it took the money from the downstate pension and consolidated it all into one under control of the state of Illinois. Well, I just read, 2 weeks ago, that even after we did this, because doing this was going to be the cure-all for the pension system. Well, we're in a worse position with the pension system now than we were in 2019. So for my coworkers that do this full-time and have done this for 30, 40 years as a lifetime career, is where's their pension at? It's not working, and yet we still continue to throw the money into the statewide pension with the promise that, you know, when these folks go to retire, that their pension that they've paid into the system for 20, 30, 40 years is going to be there. And it's not going to be there because we can't even pay the bills to fund the pension system. So, you know, do I know the answer how to fix that? No, but that's my angerness from the governor's office signing that bill, and you know, it was claimed it was a bipartisan process. It was far from a bipartisan process. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Jared. We'd like to make sure that everybody in our audience has an opportunity to throw their own landmines out there. So we would close this session. We will have a wrap up of a couple of minutes each, but we'll now open it up to anybody in the audience. And Pam, if you could kind of look for raised hands, and we'll just go in the order that we see you.
Yes, so at the bottom of your screen, you'll see reactions. You can click that and then click raise hand, or feel free to add your question in the chat, and I will read that from the screen here.
You panel, Pam, and then you can see everybody.
There you go.
And if you have a follow-up on a question maybe that was already discussed, that would be fine too.
Should we talk about the unemployment?
Don't all ask.
So I was gonna say, I'll call out the City of Galesburg conference room. Anyone there have any questions?
Yeah, can I make a couple? Can I make a comment?
Yeah,
Sure.
feel free.
Kind of fill in a little time here, if that's all right?
While people are thinking about that.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the bigger elephants in the room too right now is for our businesses is this unemployment insurance borrowing that we took out. We borrowed over $4.4 billion in unemployment insurance. And it was going to be hitting our businesses the 1st of January, but now I think business and labor have agreed to kick the can down the road till sometime in July. Unfortunately, that we still have, every day we wake up, we have a $300,000 interest payment on that $4.4 billion. We're looking at our first interest payment of $20 million coming up here real soon. And it's scary in that, we talked about ARPA spending, and it's great to see how local governments are doing it. Unfortunately, at the state level, we've tried to encourage the governor to use the $8-some billion to pay down this $4.4 billion. So our employers and the business community aren't the ones that are going to suffer paying this money back. Unfortunately, he's ignored us, anticipating on federal government just wiping a clean slate. We don't see that happening. But I think it's something that businesses and labor are going to have to struggle with here as we get closer to July once again, of what their businesses may look like if this new $4.4 billion repayment program is put on their shoulders, which could likely happen. But Illinois, I think, is number 3. California borrowed $19 billion, and New York is around 9, and we're at $4.5 billion, rounding up. So just a concern that we have something that we've addressed with the governor, that we need to be paying this down with ARPA funds because they are available, but unfortunately it hasn't been listening to our.
That's something every business owner should be aware of, for sure.
Absolutely. That's going to be coming about. Unfortunately, we do our budgets and we do our planning, but this is one of those that we're gonna have to be a new column added within that operational plan.
The bill will come due.
And we did get clarification from the federal government that the ARPA
Absolutely.
funds could be used for that purpose.
It's inappropriate.
And so, you know, even if we didn't pay all of the 4.4, if we made a concerted effort to at least pay part of that, we did get a bump in our credit rating because of a lot of the ways that things were perceived to be handled at the state level. Of the 8-some billion we received from the federal government, we did expend, and when I say we, members of the Legislative Budget Oversight Committee, thought that we had spent 2.8, and come to find out just in recent days, there's been an additional $2.1 billion that has been spent, moved from the ARPA funds to the Essential Government Support Services Fund, and then into the General Revenue Fund. So, I mean, that was just complete news to certainly many of us Republicans that sit on that oversight committee. And it's concerning if we are moving those dollars into the General Revenue Fund in a way that the public does not see, and when we could be putting that into areas like the Unemployment Trust Fund.
And that's always been our caution too, just as the mayor alluded to, and just as Chairman Hawkinson here alluded to, is that this is not going to be an every year infusion into our budgets. This is a 2-year, this year and next year, or it could all be taken up front this year. So, and that was our caution. I serve on the Appropriations Public Safety. We looked at funding all the different categories within for this Happy Feel Good Lucky program, because that money's not going to be there next year. And
that could happen too.
right, so.
Well, great. Did we have any questions from the audience then?
I have not seen any.
Okay, Ken, I'm surprised you didn't ask about workforce, but maybe somebody will address that as we go around the room. We are at 12:43, so that gives us just a few minutes for each person to have a final go at whatever is in their crop, or whatever they are happy about. And we'll
Thank you for adding that.
a lot of good things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I see some great names up there too now.
Yep. And I guess I would invite Senator Tracy to start the wrap up.
Well, thank you. It's been a great opportunity to visit with all of you. And I wanted to stress that I feel one of the most important things we do as your legislator is constituent services. And if your business or family or friend needs assistance and help navigating state government, call us. Too often we hear of people that have had a problem for quite a while, when a call to us could certainly have streamlined it. During the pandemic, many agencies have been difficult to get through to. FOID cards applications have been an extreme difficulty for people. People needing a professional license extended. I've heard that they're having a lot of troubles navigating the Illinois Professional and Financial Regulation website. So that's what we're there for. Unfortunately, we have magic numbers that help us navigate governmental services, and we want to help you do that. We work for you all, and we want to make it easier for you to live and work in Illinois. And actually, that's my whole goal as a legislator, wanting you to be able to raise your family, live and thrive in Illinois. It's been tough, and we're going to keep working it. Illinois has great resources, many positives of our state. I feel like getting unemployment, security under control, whittling away at some of our workmen's compensation problems that we find hurt our businesses and make it harder to grow. And all the things that you do to make Galesburg area thrive is appreciated. And it's a hard job. It's been very hard during this pandemic, but stay with us and give us your input of how we can help you better. But it's been a pleasure to visit with you today, and I enjoy working with you. I enjoy working with Dan Swanson and Noreen. As you can see, we work well together, and our desire is to make West Central Illinois the one of the best parts of the state. So they are going to serve you well. I have enjoyed my past years in service with you, and I will continue to serve you for the next year. And I appreciate that opportunity.
Thank you, Senator. Peter, would you like to chime in then?
Sure, thank you. It's great to hear from everyone here. You know, I really feel privileged to be in this group and to have a chance to work with you folks. As you know, it has been a challenging year, and as we move forward, we have a great city council. I think now we have a lot of new members. We have diverse views, which is, I think, very healthy in democracy, to have different people representing different entities, different political perspectives and such. So I think we have a really healthy council at the moment. But I look at the big picture, like how do we make our communities thrive? And being a former athlete, you know, I played on a team. How does a team thrive? It takes teamwork. And what is teamwork in the political sense? I think open communication, very important. Mutual responsibility, accountability, and feedback, the acceptance of feedback. So what Galesburg has done, I think, with this strategic planning process has really taken on the effort to have measurable goals and targets. And I encourage other government agencies to adopt similar tools so that when constituents come to them and say, well, what are you guys doing? Well, these are the things we attempted to do, and these are the successes, and these are maybe some of the things that we haven't accomplished, but we're changing our methods, we're changing our playbook a bit to see if these things will lead to the outcomes. I think in terms of outcomes, independent of our political persuasion, the outcomes we all want are very, very similar, right? And that we found this in the strategic planning process with our city. We have different political views, but yet we all want many of the same things. How do we get there? Well, that's again where the devil's in the details. Let's try different things, see if they work. If they work, then let's do them not only in Galesburg, but do them in some other communities as well. And there probably, and I'm sure there are other districts who are doing things that we can learn from. We don't have to invent everything in our community. Although I think having the groundswell of community support for many of our initiatives, if you've been in Galesburg recently, hopefully you're there at night. I mean, just the beauty of the city, the downtown area with the new lights and such has really raised community pride. If you're at the Christmas parade last weekend, a fantastic event, probably visited by more people. And as I said in the council meeting, probably saw more smiling faces in like 30 minutes than I've seen probably in the last year. It was really an upbeat event. And I think it's part and parcel of what good teamwork leads to, right? Happiness and a thriving community. So lastly, I would just say, you know, back to the fact that we have many new council members. I hope everyone here reaches out to them, put them to work. I think they've kind of have a renewed spirit given the strategic planning process. They realize what they're there to do, and they're very interested in getting it done. And with that, I wish everyone a happy holiday and be safe, you know, and let's have a wonderful 2022 for all of us.
Thank you, Peter. Jared?
Just a couple quick things in closing. You know, thanks again for hosting us at the BNSF conference room, and then the chamber for putting this together, and for Mark for moderating on your last month. And it's been great working with you in different aspects of your position and your leadership in the community. So thanks very much, and we hope that you can enjoy your retirement. So just a couple items that I know that Peter touched on is the broadband, the fiber going into the city of Galesburg. You know, that was just announced, Peter, 3 weeks ago, and I've already seen the I3Com trucks digging and placing fiber fiber throughout the
In front of
state.
my house.
So, I mean, they're moving quickly,
Amazing.
which goes hand in hand with the county's position. One of our, and Haley from the Farm Bureau, another community leader, is on the call as well, that she's very well aware of the need for fiber or just regular broadband access throughout the rural communities and rural parts of the county. That's part of the task force. One of the main objectives is to try to get funding to secured for underserved and unserved areas of the county. It's not cheap. I think that we had some folks from the leaders from the broadband and fiber companies in the area. I want to say it's about $1 million a mile to lay infrastructure for just, and so, we did get some commitment from the state, from the governor's office, that they would match the county's spending by 50% from whatever we spend. They'll match. However, when the money shows up, then I'll believe everything that the state government says, no pun intended. But I also want to make sure that we address and thank everybody for being on the call. Looking at the names on the screen, you folks are the community leaders, state leaders, government leaders. You folks are the ones out there doing the legwork and really participating in making our community a better place. So I want to make sure I thank you guys for participating and do what you do. But I also want to close with special thanks to Ken Springer. If you don't know Ken with the KCAP and all of the work that the KCAP group does for trying to bring businesses new or expanding the businesses, if he smells anybody trying to make a bigger business, you're getting a thumbs up on the screen there, expand their business, bring business in, he and his group, they are on top of it. And that's the stuff that we need for this community that's had such a tremendous loss. We can do anything to help. That's the group, as well as everybody else on the call, to bring businesses and the workforce to Knox County. So thanks again.
Thank you, Jared. And then lastly, we'll leave it up to our two representatives to add whatever they might like to add.
I'll go ahead. Thank you, ma'am. Yield your time to me, huh? Wow, from a senior leader. Wow.
Not all of it.
Okay. Well, it's been a pleasure being here. And once again, thanks to all the sponsors. Madam President, thank you for your work and congratulations, all you've done and seeing the growth of the chamber. Thank you, Gary. And what's a young man going to do now that he's retired?
Well, this young man's 70, and I plan to chase my daughter around and do a little bit of fishing and learn how to nap arrowheads.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
And a grandpa, you get to slip a nap in once in a while, too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, congratulations. And as Jared said, you've been a great community leader, and we hope we don't disappear.
Yep.
We're going to rely on you, continued support here. And to everyone on the call here, just once again, it's a pleasure to be here. Pam, thanks for putting this together. And it's always great to see the chamber out amongst the community. And as it's been said here, Galesburg has so many great things coming to us. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to represent and serve the constituencies of Galesburg and Knoxville and the Knox County areas that I'll continue to represent. But, there are a lot of good things coming forward. And we just are so thankful to have the leadership we have, and the mayor, congratulations. You've taken the ball and run with it, and appreciate that with all you're doing. And Jared, is the chair of the county board. There's great and wonderful things coming out of the county board. Appreciate all you do there. And as Ken's are, I don't need to get a thumbs up or away from Ken. He knows that he does a great job, and Haley and everyone up on the board, thank you. And it's Riverbend Food Bank. My gosh, looking so forward to seeing those doors open. Yep. And what you're going to bring to Galesburg and the surrounding communities. I don't think it's resoluted and people quite understand the impact we're going to have here locally with you in our back door, and look forward to working with you and continue to working with you on the Riverbend Food Bank project moving forward. And with that, I'm just going to say thank you to everyone. Have a safe and Merry Christmas. And gosh, looking forward to 2022 as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Lorraine?
So thank you again, and I will just echo what Dan has said and others before me, and thank you for your leadership on the board, and Pam for hosting this, or putting this together, Peter for hosting, and Mark for keeping us all in line here this morning. It's not
We're
always
right on
easy.
time.
Yeah, we are right on time. But when I look up at the folks that are participating here, and this is what makes this community so great, because of the participation that you have with the economic development folks, the community foundation folks, the higher education, the ag community with Haley and Krista, and pulling it all together. I have to give a shout out to Blanche with the Workforce Investment Board. You know, this is the thing that makes this community work. And under Mayor Schwartzman's direction and the county board, this is what makes Galesburg the force that it is. And many communities around us don't have that same buy-in that Galesburg has. And, you know, are there things that you may not have yet? Yeah, sure there are. But under the direction of all of these folks and the folks pushing here, I think it's a great move forward, and with the high-speed internet going in, sky's the limit. So I will echo what Jill said. If there's anything we can ever do legislatively to try to maneuver through the morass of state government, happy to help and do anything that we can to support the community in any of their efforts as well. So thank you all for the opportunity. Wish you all a Merry Christmas and a great New Year.
Thank you very much, Noreen. And with that, I want to turn it over to Pam. Pam, thank you very much. And,
Mark,
we'll
thank
wrap it
you.
up.
You did a great job. Thank you.
This is fun.
I want to thank everybody on the Zoom call. Thank you for hanging out with us for so long. I think we covered a lot of great topics. I want to thank our legislators and our local elected officials, both present and virtually. Thank you for the time. I know this is not easy to carve time out on December 13th, especially. So thank you so much to all of you for being here. And it was great to hear about your goals and things you're looking to do in the future. So thank you for that. And if you do have any questions, send them to me and I can send them on to the appropriate contacts. If you have a direct question, I'm happy to facilitate getting those questions moved on for you. But again, I want to thank the volunteers who delivered our food from Lenny's and Innkeepers today. And again, thank you to our capital sponsor, Bruder Cooper and Zook, and our advocacy sponsors, BNSF Railway. Peter, thank you again. And Comcast Business. I have Art Simbersky. I can never say your name correctly, I'm sorry, but Art's on. Thank you for your sponsorship, and we look forward to an active and successful 2022. So stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can't believe we ended on